blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste.
Hi, I'm David Smith, and we're thankful that you have tuned into this particular interview today. You may know me from the program In a Word. It appears regularly on GBN. I'm also the preacher for the North Hamilton Church of Christ. And I'm very pleased that I can be here today for an interview with Roger Shepard, who has got some exciting news about a boys' preacher training camp, and we're going to get straight to the interview. Roger, we're glad that you're with us today for this interview, and to begin, there are many people who may know who you are. There are some who may not. Why don't you begin with some personal information, give us a little bit of detail about who you are and what kind of experience you've had, and we'll get right into your training program in just a moment.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here and excited about this program and excited about the opportunity to tell you about the greatest thing in the world.
Yes, sir.
And that is Future Preacher Training Camp.
That's right.
At Amherst University. I came to Amherst University after graduating from Fuller Theological Seminary with a doctorate in missiology, and came there with three assignments, basically. One is as the Dean of the College of General Studies, of which we are involved in preacher training. I have 2 Bible degrees in that program. We offer a Bible of biblical studies in arts, and we offer a Bible degree in science. So everybody can come that desire to study the Bible on a college level can do so, and many come to us to train to be preachers, which secondly, I was hired to help restore, to continue the legacy of Amherst University to train preachers. And thirdly, to teach missions. Of course, I teach a lot of the mission classes and evangelism classes, been involved in open Bible study method of evangelism for 33 years. And then, I guess in the 4th place would be to develop this Future Preachers Training Camp, which starts at the age 13, in order to restore within our young men the desire and the ability to go out and preach the gospel, which is very much needed. In addition to that, I do some mission work. I have opportunity to take people into the mission field from time to time. My next plan is leave July the 27th and go to Arusha, Tanzania, and continue to encourage the development of the Future Preachers Training Camp that we developed there 4 years ago. And just one quick story about that I think is very, very exciting. 4 years ago, we had 2 young men that came to us as future preachers at age 16. It's very much developed, and since that time they have helped plant. They've furnished a lot of the leadership of planting 3 congregations in the regions of Tanzania. It works. We're very excited about that program.
Very good. And so I know that you had mentioned prior to our being on air that you were original graduate of East Tennessee School Preaching and Missions. Of course, they used to have those 2 designations. So in a way, you've always been involved with both education and with mission work, and I think you found a place where you can put both of those together. I think that's wonderful. And I know that you certainly understand the importance of continued education because you continue to be associated with the college, and so that's really good. I think you found a place where you can fulfill your talents well. You were talking about this preacher's training camp, and really that's the reason we're here today, is to be able to talk about this wonderful training camp that you have going. And of course you've already talked about the fruit of that with the establishment of these congregations and the continued success of these young men. Why don't you tell us a little bit of the history of this camp, how it got started, about something that may let us know that this is not something that's brand new on the scene of history. It's been going for quite a while, and you're being able to plant these same types of educational programs in other places too.
Right. It began in 1971 under the oversight of the elders at the Pennington Bend Church of Christ in Nashville, Tennessee, which was an idea of Dr. Rodney Cloud, who saw the need for more preachers to go off to college, and prior to their college, he said, well, we ought to be able to train at least age 13 to 18, and we bring those young guys in, give them the zeal, which at that age they're ready to be molded, and they're ready to look at good examples, and they're eager to get into the Word of God. And so it got its start from there. Dr. Cloud is now serving as the dean of the theological school, Turner School of Theology at Amherst University.
Okay.
He still does take somewhat of a leading role. He came down last year and instructed those guys for an hour on where we got the Bible, how we got the Bible, which was very helpful. He's been known to share with them Greek studies, Hebrew studies,
Wonderful.
in which let me just say this by way of my own personal example of the need of a training school like this, which started in Nashville, Tennessee, and first time it was ever duplicated was in Denver, Colorado. I had the blessing there when I was on staff at the Bear Valley Bible Institute to duplicate it there. From that, trained a group that duplicated it in Louisville, Texas, and also had the opportunity to duplicate it in Arusha, Tanzania. Has already been designated there in our discussion. But from my own personal experience in my life, there have always been a preacher in every generation of my family. So from the time that I was 10 years old, they didn't know much about what the church was all about, came into the church when I was age 16.
Right.
They turned up the heat. I was always introduced as the next preacher, so I've done it for 41 years. And as I tell my young men, always, if I had another life, I'd do exactly the same thing. I have no regrets of being a gospel preacher or whatsoever. And so my son, Jason, preaches the gospel. I have a nephew that preaches the gospel, Derek, which they have been involved basically all their life with this young preacher training, and it worked in their life. I have Jared Harp, who's my son-in-law, graduate of Memphis School of Preaching. He's now preaching full-time. I have two grandsons, Jacob at age 3, Jesse at age 1. They're going to be preachers. They just don't know it yet. So at least they're being encouraged. My point being that if we don't encourage young men at that age and mold them, give them skills and abilities to perform, we're not going to have any preachers. That's right. Bottom line.
That's right. That's a great history. And I think, if anything, you have illustrated, I think, very well, it's never too early to start training young men to preach the gospel. Sometimes we have a mindset that you should wait until you're much older and much more mature, and those raw talents that you see in these young men, they might not ever be discovered unless we start early enough. And their minds are certainly able to comprehend the information that you're giving to them. And of course, I think you've already expressed you're seeing great benefits just from these young men, so I think it's a wonderful thing. I know along with the history of this camp, you've also talked about there being a distinguished purpose for this camp. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the purpose of this camp and what your intent is in such a young men's training camp as this?
The purpose of this camp is to take young men aged 13 to 18 and introduce them to every aspect of a preacher's life, his personal life, his personal faith. Bottom line, we promise the parents that they'll be better Christian young men when they leave us than when they came. Guaranteed. It's not. We've not failed in it yet.
Right.
And so that's one of the main objectives is to teach them how to be a Christian, how to be a Christian first, then how to become a gospel preacher. And we teach the public speaking just like they would have freshmen in college. We use some of the same materials. We don't use any guidelines that they're going to be introduced here. Then when they get to first year of college, that's going to be thrown aside. No, they're going to be ahead of the class in that area if they stay with us 3 or 4 years. We teach them how to do local ministry. Paul said in 2 Timothy 4 verse 6, do the work of an evangelist. We teach them how to evangelize with an open Bible study method, how to open up their Bible, how to study with people, and certainly a preacher needs that role in order to train and mold congregations to do that. How to do mission work, they're introduced to that. They're introduced to some leadership principles that is very, very outstanding. So by way of just summing up, as we allow area gospel preachers, for example, to come in and to instruct and to encourage, they'll also be involved in classes with men who hold PhDs on that level. Also, like Curtis Sampley sat last year and talked to these boys about preaching the gospel out of 60 years experience. I mean, it doesn't really get any better than that, to have that role model. And we're going to repeat that, Lord willing, again in July 8th with this camp. So just kind of sum it up, we want them to be Christians, we want them to be preachers, we want evangelists, we want missionaries, we want, there have been men known to lead this that early on now, that came in 1971, serving as elders, serving as deacons, youth ministers. So in every aspect of the ministry, we have young men that we've encouraged due to their parents encouraging them and other influences that they've had to actually go out into the field, and they are performing. They're getting the job. They're getting the job done very much.
So what we need to do is encourage our young men to attend these camps because of the great opportunity that's there. Not only would they be getting the academic knowledge, the sort of the textbook knowledge from men who are well trained in this area, they're getting great experience from older, wiser preachers, and so it's invaluable when it really comes down to getting involved in local work. And it just really sounds like a great program, and it sounds like your young men are just like sponges, just soaking it up, and so that's what we want them to be. The great purpose. I know that with such a great purpose, there have to be some really practical benefits, not just to them, but to the people that they would work with. So why don't you explain a little bit about the benefits of a camp like this for young boys?
Okay, before I do that, point out some 10 things I think the young man's going to get by coming to our camps. Is we don't put these guys in a bubble. We don't hide the bad. We're not totally negative, not totally positive. We try to be really balanced, and we don't shelter them. We understand that if it wasn't difficult to be a preacher, everybody'd be doing this.
Sure, that's right.
So we don't try to hide from that and just tell it like it is. But here's some benefits. As from time to time I answer the question, well, what's in this for me? Number one, edification from the Word of God. You're surprised. We'd be surprised as to how much they edify each other. You know, Paul told the elders in Acts 20, verse 32, that he was there to impart to them the message so that they could be built up.
That's right.
That they could be edified and encouraged. Fellowship, they're going to have fellowship and partnership, friendship with the finest young men in the brotherhood. We do from time to time say no to some applicants that,
sure,
you know, not everybody returns year after year, and so, but friendships, there's friendships. Dr. Kirk Brothers, who's now teaching at Freed-Hardeman University, was involved in these camps since age 13, and he did a mass amount of local work, and he still has friendships.
That's great.
Today that he had and he built in his first camp. It's a great faith builder. Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the Word of God, Romans 10:7. Mm-hmm. Also, it comes by example.
That's right.
And it comes by trial and error as well. So our slogan is, it's easier to build boys than it is to mend men. So if we build them right to start with, we won't have that problem later on. Evangelism skills, opportunity to share their faith with the lost. Just last year, I had a young man that went home, set up a study with 12 people.
That's great.
Age 16, 17, along that line. Just tremendous work that they can do. Leadership skills, develop the leader within them. They go back and they begin to exercise these leadership skills within their youth group, within evangelism, within various programs that the early church, that the church, the congregation allows them to have. Public speaking skills with emphasis on the Bible. There are skills, those skills will overlap in different walks of life. Right. But some of these young men down through the times have been known to go out on the weekend on a regular basis and handle the pulpit very well. So increase their spirituality. As Pete Johnson and I always said, you could cut spirituality with a knife. It's so thick. I mean, it's not the regular camp that you go out into the woods and so on. No, they have They have to dress. They have to look like a preacher.
Yes.
We really mean business. And one of the things that we hold a tight rope on is their spiritual life.
Sure.
And strengthen them. Study skills, how to study the Bible, the importance of the original language, and the importance of the grammar, hermeneutical skills. There again, we teach the same thing that they would get when they enter college as a freshman. Number 9, how to have a real close personal relationship with God. Now, basically, in what we do, we have classroom situations, we have public speaking classes, we have what we call in the evening, we have what we call spoken English. Now, that's nothing more but an impromptu.
Right.
They get up, they get behind the pulpit, and we give them a subject. Now, here's where we can develop a lot of spirituality with the interchange with what they give us, and we got 2 or 3 people questioning and working with the young man so that we can bring the best out of him.
That's great.
At that point. They will tell you stories spiritually that will make you cry, make you grow,
sure,
and even make you mad from time to time. So it's just a real, to me, I've been told by others, and to me that's a highlight of what we really do. And then last, of course, faithfulness to the Lord.
Oh, sure.
Bottom line, we can't do anything if we're not faithful to Christ.
That's right.
And Christ encourages us to be faithful unto death. He'll give us a crown of life, Revelation 2 and verse 10. But these are the center of the great benefits your son will benefit by coming to these camps.
That's right. I've always heard growing up, and I don't know that people actually mean it, they just don't think about it. They say, well, our youth, they're the church of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I understand they might mean that they might be the leadership of tomorrow, but as long as they're Christians, they're the church of today, and they need to be equipped with the same skills. Some of these young men sound like they have a level of maturity that sometimes far exceeds people who chronologically are older than themselves. And I appreciate the fact that, we are told in 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 2 that we're to train people who will be faithful and able, and so sometimes the emphasis in preacher training schools is on ability, but not a lot on the faithfulness of the man preaching the message. And so it sure sounds like in training these young men that you're training men who will not only be capable, have the actual the knowledge and the speaking skills, the homiletical and hermeneutical skills, but you're emphasizing the need for them to actually be faithful to God, which I certainly appreciate, and I know that parents would certainly appreciate that too. It may be that you have some sort of standout stories, personal stories that you may have at this time just to share with the audience, and do you have anything like that you might like to give to the audience?
Sure. Just one I was just really waiting to tell. We normally don't allow 8-year-olds to come to this camp, but when I went to Arusha, Tanzania, one of the sons of the father that was helping me as staff member just kept begging and begging. Okay. Early on, he wanted to be a part of this camp. So I said, well, you can be our mascot.
Okay.
And he put this thing together, 8 years old. He spoke for 10 minutes on Friday, didn't look at a note, not a single note. If he hadn't have been 8 years old, he would have went into the final.
Wow.
Now I recommend, and we use this at Amridge, is that we boil it down to 8 speakers who usually go out. Last year they went out to Capitol Heights congregation in Montgomery and they spoke in the pulpit.
Right.
So not only do we give them the skills, but we actually want to put them in the pulpit to see how they perform. I'd have put that 8-year-old there, hadn't been 8 years old. Yeah. I mean, he really, just a fantastic story. But I have a couple of comments from last year's camp at Amridge University that I will share with you. It's the only camp that I've had in 33 years that every participant could lead a song. So we teach singing, and they came to us with those abilities. One of those guys, Ben Moon's going to return this year, and he's going to do the major song directing for us. It's the only camp that I had in 33 years that we've had 4 young men who had on-the-field experience in a foreign field as a missionary.
Right.
So that added a lot to the goals of the camp. One mother said, "My son attended the preacher camp at Amridge this year, and what an honor. They've helped him to grow very much. Now he's conducting a Bible study with 12 students every Saturday." That's the one I told about earlier. So another camper stated, "Thank you for having this camp and providing study, support, encouragement, and instruction on how to do a sermon." You know, a lot of people do a lot of things in the church they know how.
That's exactly right.
You know, I've had people in evangelism that didn't know how.
That's right.
Well, that's okay. The apostles didn't know anything about being
That's
fishers
right.
of men.
That's right.
Jesus said, "Come, follow me, and I'll make you to become fishers of men." So we can help men. I've had young men to come to me, and they could get behind a podium and couldn't tell you their name. They're preaching the gospel full time today as a result of this young training. I thought this is unique. One came and said, "Well, I wanted to be a basketball player, but now I want to be a preacher."
Oh, good.
And so I thought that was really, really outstanding. And another one said, "Thank you for helping me to be a better preacher." So he already considered himself a preacher.
Sure.
At that age. And so he was a better preacher when he left us.
Oh, yeah. You know, even if these men don't end up preaching full-time later in life, you've got to appreciate the fact that you've trained future leaders in the church with skills that far exceed the level of most members. You've got people who can fill in preach, conduct Bible classes, and you know that they're going to be hearty, really in-depth Bible classes. And so it's a really wonderful thing, the premise of training young men to fill these roles. And it's so exciting to hear about the good work that they're already doing at such a young age. And I think it's easy for some people to dismiss the ability of youth to do something in the church, but you've got great evidence for it here. And that could be that there are some here who are thinking, that's something I want to send my son to. I want to be involved in that personally. Is there anything by way of contact information that if they want to get in touch with you, Roger, they get in touch with you or the school? How would they go about getting involved in this program?
One of the easiest ways is to go on our website at amridgeuniversity.edu, pull up the homepage, bottom left, there's a preacher training camp. Click on that link, go in there, and it has some history, it has some comment from last year, it has a full app. We have to have that full app. You have to download it, hard copy, and mail that to me at Amridge University in care of Dr. Roger Shepard, 1200 Taylor Road, Montgomery, Alabama, 36117. You may also call me at 334-387-7814. It goes directly to my office. I'm not there. There's a machine that'll pick it up, and I'll get right back to you. But we are looking for good young men. Our camp this year is scheduled July the 8th through 13th, and we limit that to 25 because of quality. There's one-on-one work that we can do with them that you can't do with 50 guys in a training session like that. I'd rather have 2 or 3 of these camps as to load it up and have guys there that went away and said I got nothing out of it because I didn't get the personal attention.
Well, that's
that
wonderful.
I really needed.
That's wonderful. I know that you had mentioned before that you had much larger classes, but you prefer the smaller ratio so that there's more student-teacher interaction.
Right.
Any other stories, anything else that you want to leave the audience today so that they have a full picture of this boys' preacher training camp?
I might end up with this. Last year, we emphasized the study of the Bible from the standpoint of the Luke 5 story where they were out fishing and they were on their hard luck, and Jesus said, cast out into the deep. So we had a theme, knee deep. We really turned up the spirituality, the study of the Bible, the homiletical skills, and those type of things. We got them knee deep in absorbing all of this material. And so I've been encouraged to, if I can work out some time somewhere, to have another one of these camps that would take young men aged 19 to 30 who are doing some preaching, who probably are doing some full-time preaching.
Right.
But they came and said, man, we need a shot in the arm. We need to look at some of these things again and to be able to talk about some things. Now, another attribute of this camp is that we, in this spoken English and in some one-on-one talk sessions and so on, we help them how to deal with their problems. Right. How to deal with their problems with one another. Now, all right, you got 25 to 30 young men aged 13 to 18 sleeping on the same roof. About Wednesday, they're going to get the porcupine syndrome, which is, if you get close to me, I'm going to stick you.
Right.
And that's okay. That's life.
Mm-hmm.
But we deal with that in a way they can deal with that. They can, they don't give up their faith. They
right.
don't. They work through those issues. So it just works wonderful. That we are really considering at Amridge to expand that to that other week. So these guys who've had a little bit of experience and like maybe you and I know I suffered it when at a time in my life, I really want to do this the rest of my life.
Right.
So I went back to school, I had some classes, I had some conversations, and that type of thing. And yeah, I think I'm in for the long haul. And I've been doing it 41 years. So I can see a need of bringing them back in for a week, and we deal with some of those issues. Main thing is we need preachers. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's a great time to be a young preacher. And we need to do what Paul said, the things which you've learned from me, the same commit to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also, 2 Timothy 2 and verse 2. We also need elders. And so we take the same thing when they're down here, encourage these young guys.
That's right.
From the positive aspects, that an elder is something you want to be when you grow up. Preacher is something you really want to be when you grow up, or deacon. And so it just works. It just works to take young men to age 13 to 18, introduce them for a week, help them decide, help them get a college education, and help them find a good pulpit where they can function.
That's really wonderful. I think as a young person, that edification, that encouragement is so important, especially with the challenges they face as young people. But that's wonderful. And then in addition to that, they're getting an education that, I think we discount the fact that young people actually like to study the Bible. They do. They're like sponges, as we said before. They'll just absorb that information while their minds are still fresh and able to receive it. It just sounds like a really great program. And Roger, we're thankful that you're with us today to tell us about this. And what I hope as a result of this interview is that you'll get some more applicants, right, and that we can train some more preachers. And we certainly wish you well and pray God's blessings upon your work. And we'll encourage everybody continually to get in touch with you. Send your children there. If anything, look at what you've done for the future of the church by training men who can eventually be those strong elders in the church one day. And hopefully, even now, we'll have young men who'll be preaching the gospel everywhere and saving souls, which is really what this is all about, is saving souls. Roger, we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
And we're thankful
so much.
Yes. We're thankful that you're with us today, and we're certainly want to encourage you to be in touch with Roger. If you have young men who need to be involved in this preacher training program, sounds like a great program. You know that they're going to get a great education, and we know that they're going to be encouraged, and those are two things that are just invaluable to young people, really to all Christians, but especially these young men. I'm David Smith. We're thankful that you're with us today, and until the next time we're together, I bid you Godspeed.
Praising my Savior.